Hello everyone, welcome to Strategy with Fatima. We are students from UWS MBA program. We are here at the heart of Colombo in one of the busiest places in Sri Lanka, and we are here to discuss about strategy. So we as students have realized that many people have complicated defining strategy, so we are here to simplify it and make it easier to understand. So let's answer the question, what is strategy? The word strategy comes from the military, as we already know, and many well-renowned authors define it in their own way. Johnson and Scholes say that strategy is a direction and a scope of an organization over the long term, which achieves competitive advantage for the organization through its configuration of resources within a challenging environment, and with it meet the needs of the market and also fulfill stakeholder expectations.
You're absolutely right, Fatima. Now, Michael Porter is by far the most accepted strategist in the world. However, according to Porter's strategy, it's about being different. It means deliberately choosing a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value. He also states strategy is a position where you differentiate yourself among the customers and among the competitors. Of course, there have been different other strategies as well. Mintzberg is one of them. I'm sure Indika could explain about Mintzberg.
Thanks for the interest as well. As much as Fatima said, and the definition that we would look at, plus different perspectives of strategy. We have Porter, and now I would very briefly tell what Mintzberg also talks about strategy. There are quite a few of them as well, but then, Mintzberg also comes up with a quite an interesting definition of strategy as well. He says strategy could come in different ways. It could come as a position. Strategy could come as well in a perspective, or probably it could become a plan itself. The plan itself could become a strategy. Or else it could be a position, it could be a ploy, or it could be also a perspective. So there are multiple levels of aspects a strategy could become in an organization rather than being a one thing.
So it has been understood that different authors have come up with their own different schools of thoughts. And by far, strategy, the definition of strategy is yet a matter of contradiction. So, but we hope that by the end of this session, that all of your confusions are clarified and that you'll have a better understanding about what strategy is. To start off, let's talk about the levels and types of strategy. Which, Rukshan, would you like to discuss about it?
Thanks, Fatima. So, to understand what strategy is, you need to first understand what are the different levels that the strategy operates in. There are three levels of strategy which we can discuss today. First level is the corporate strategy. As you explained in your definition by Johnson and Scholes, it's a challenging environment. So how the organization as a whole decides to operate, decides how to strategize, falls under the corporate strategy. It basically talks about whether the organization wants to diversify. It discusses about whether the organization wants to merge or to sell off, or to do new product development, or to get into market development. So all these things are discussed at the corporate level strategy. The decisions are very complex because the nature that the organization operates in changes very rapidly. So that is the first level of strategy. Then we go into the second level of strategy, which is the SBU strategy, or the competitive strategy, as we mostly know. This focuses on the growth and the profitability of the business. For example, you take a bank. A bank will, as a whole, there is a corporate entity. But if you look in deeper, it will have its own credit card division. It will have its leasing arm, it will have its retail arm. So all these things are different strategic business units, and they need to have their own strategies. This is where the SBU strategies come into play. There are different strategies that these SBUs use, whether it has to be a cost leader, whether it needs to go into differentiation again, whether it has to utilize a hybrid strategy using Bowman's strategy clock. Then should it be a niche strategy? Should it be a focused strategy? Should it get into the blue ocean without operating in the red ocean? If it's a market leader, why should it use a defense strategy? Or if it's not the market leader, should it use attack strategy? So this is the second layer of strategy, which is the SBU strategy, or the competitive strategy of an organization. Then we go to the third layer, which is the operational or the functional strategy. This is the strategy at the grassroots level. For example, how the organization uses its marketing mix, right? How the people is used, how the processes are used, how the physical evidence is used. Basically, what is the strategy of the human resource department? What is the strategy of the marketing department? What is the strategy of the finance department? So these are the three levels of strategy as we know it. Then we go into, those are the three levels, right? So then we go into the three types of strategy, or one would call it the categories of strategic choice. Again, there's three categories that marketing teaches us, right? We come down to the first category, which is again the SBU or the competitive strategy, which will ask the question, or which will answer the question, how the organization needs to compete, right? How to achieve a competitive advantage, right? Porter in his generic strategies gives us 4 options, right? Then you have the second strategic choice, which is the product or the market strategy, which answers the question where you want to compete, right? So Igor Ansoff came out with his Ansoff's matrix, which again gives you 4 strategies that can be used. Where will your direction of growth be, right? Then there's the third layer, which is the institutional strategies, right? So organizations needs to decide how it wants to grow, whether it needs to have an organic growth, example 10% each year, 8% each year, 5% each year, or whether the organization is going to have inorganic growth, whether it's going to have a 5% growth this year, but next year it will go by 15%. How? Maybe through an acquisition, maybe by taking over another company or merging with another company. So in simple terms, if you need to understand strategy, you need to know the 3 levels of strategy that we discussed earlier, and 3 types of strategy, or 3 categories of strategic choice.
That's right, Raksha. But in addition to that, we also need to understand key tools that are needed to develop a strategic choice in an organization. So Jitendra, why don't you explain some of the key tools that can be used by an organization to develop a strategic option?
Thank you so much, Fatima. Exactly, there are a lot of tools to talk about when it comes to managing and deciding on a strategy for a business. So if you're going to talk about all of them, it's going to take forever. So let's focus on a few key points. So we're going to start off with Porter's generic strategy. This is the most basic tool that you can use to come up with an option to run your business. So what he talks about is you can focus on either being a cost leader or to go into differentiation. And in these 2 sections, you have to choose whether you want to be in a narrow field or you want to be in the broad field of choice. So he says that among these 4 choices, you can only focus on one. You have to be focused and be single-mindedly driven towards just one of these things. So he says you should either just choose one of these 4 and be stuck to that. And he describes this as the perfect way to run a business. Otherwise, if you're going to try and venture into either one of the other 4 fields, you're going to be stuck in the middle, and that's not going to work out. Now, if you're going to talk about Porter, you need to talk about the value chain. So what a value chain does is it's a method to streamline your business. You're going to look at your expenses. You're going to try to cut it down. You're going to try to improve certain fields in regard to your competition to come up with the best choice of strategy. So then, now, once you decide on all of this, you need to know where you stand. So if you want to know where you stand, what tool you can use is something called activity mapping. So activity mapping is basically where you take all your sort of little little activities that you have in your company, and you come up with, you draw a diagram, you see where each thing comes in to play, what's the key ingredients that needs to be focused. In a company with a clear strategic option, they have their high priorities set and there are little key activities around it which they use to drive their key core facilities to work better. And another option is what we can talk about is Bowman. Now what Bowman talks about is he takes what Porter said and he kicks it up a notch. He's talking about 8 different strategies, whereas Porter was talking about 4. He's someone who created a hybrid system. He's talking about, okay, you want to be a cost leader, you want to do differentiation, you can do both. We're talking about price versus customer satisfaction, what they see is valuable. And he says it's okay, you can be stuck in the middle. And that's also a certain option as well. So each of these authors and each of these consultants, they have different options, and there's many tools. And I think Rukshan has something to say about Ansoff as well.
So this is the beauty of strategy. There are a lot of tools that organizations can use, and there's a lot of contradiction in each of these tools also, but none of it is wrong, that we will understand by the end of this discussion. To add a little bit more flavor into what Jitendra told, the activity map, right, which is a very fantastic and a basic tool that any organization can use. You have your core activities, and then you have your small activities that helps the core activities to function. So what an organization needs to do is map your activities and then try and map your competitors' activities, and then see where are you missing, what are the activities that you don't do that your competitor is doing. And then you can implement that into your strategy, right? And then he spoke about the Bowman strategy clock, which is a beautiful example of how strategy contradicts. Whereas Porter in his generic strategy says that you can't be stuck in the middle. You need to pick one strategy to operate in. But Bowman came and said, being stuck in the middle itself is a strategy, and he called it the hybrid strategy. So that was a little bit flavor onto what Jitendra told earlier. Another tool that organizations need to choose, especially when it comes to your SBU strategies that I discussed earlier, is the Ansoff's matrix by Ego Ansoff. This has 4 quadrants. This has 4 strategies, right? So having a market penetration is one strategy, product development is one strategy, market development is one strategy, diversification is one strategy. But he also adds to say, based on the strategy that you use, there's a risk involved, right? He says market penetration with an existing product penetrating into the existing market, he says that has very less risk. But he says if you're going into diversification, which is entering into a new market with a new product, that has the highest risk. So what we can understand is, if the organizations, when the organizations are doing their SBU strategies, I think it would be ideal for them to use a strategy like Ego Ansoff's matrix to help them strategize. Jitendra?
Okay, thank you so much, Rukshan. And now let's talk about, if you want to achieve a quantum leap in your business, you want to go beyond the call of just regular, moderate, organic growth. What we are going to talk about is what Kim and Mabonj introduced, which is called the Blue Ocean Strategy. Now what this is you're going to kick it up a notch. You're going to go beyond and go into an uncontested, totally new market and create your own boundaries to come across and to just sail beyond your competition. Now to do this, what you need to do is you need to study your market. What you can use is use a strategic canvas where you look at key tools and key points where you want to focus on, and in regard to your competition, you need to be able to do better than them. You want to see where you can achieve and where your strengths can play a part in this. And including the strategic canvas, we also need to look at the 4 key factor tools, where you need to decide what you want to eliminate in your business, what you want to reduce in your business, what you want to create, and what you want to raise in your business. And once you do and get into the Blue Ocean strategy, you will be quite well off for some time, and you will be achieving quite huge margins compared to normal. So if you're going to talk about blue ocean, you're going to talk about red ocean as well. And here are the red ocean and blue ocean versus points in comparison, and you can see that right now. Okay, so you can either be in the blue ocean and stay afloat for a short time, or you can be struggling in the red oceans forever. That's up to you.
Okay, so blue ocean seems like a good way to go, but as all things, not everything is as easy as it sounds. So we just looked at the key tools that are necessary to come up with a strategic option. But that's not enough. We also need to know how to evaluate these strategic options. So when we discuss about evaluation of strategic options, Indika, could you please give us a little bit briefing about it?
All right, Fatima, thanks for that. And coming back to a pretty interesting area, I suppose, again, we're trying to understand how to evaluate these strategic options. We've got loads of options in hand. I mean, how are we going to evaluate it? How are we going to select the best option? So this is centered into three main aspects where we evaluate the whole evaluation happens within these three aspects. So we look at the suitability for an organization of this strategy, how suitable this is, and we look at the feasibility of it as well, how feasible this is going to be, and also whether it's acceptable, the level of acceptability of this strategy as well. So how it's going to be looked at is, and why we look at it in this way is, we have options and we have strategical options, but a organization to take an option, we need to see whether it's suitable for you. First of all, it could be the strategy that you take could be anything, but we need to see whether it's suitable for this organization, whether it will adapt to the organization's objectives, whether it will make use of the real strengths, the competencies, the key competencies they have, whether it will make use of it, whether it will make use of the key resources they have. And also, the suitability is very important to understand, because whether this option that we take, whether it's going to be using the opportunities that we have in the market to bring out the bring out the results that the organization wants, whether it addresses the threats that we have, whether it addresses the ways of to come out of the threats that we have as well. So all in all, we have to understand that whether the strategy that we bring in is suitable for this organization. Also, we're talking about feasibility. This could be an ideal strategy that we have as an organization, but how feasible is this going to be? I mean, on cost factor, obviously strategies aren't going to come free of charge to you. Strategy is going to, there's time, the money you are going to spend on bringing restructuring things is going to cost you a lot of things, direct and indirect expenses as well. So the feasibility aspect of it is pretty important to understand, whether it will bring out the results that you need at a feasible cost, whether you can afford the cost of it itself. It could be the best strategy that you have under the sun, but probably as a startup company, you might not be able to support it. You might not be able to face it. So it might not be feasible to you. So you might want to wait for another 1 more year or 2 more years to do that. So it has to be feasible to you as well as an organization. Also, it has to be the return on investment that you're going to make on it, whether it will achieve the real objectives you want to achieve, or whether it's going to do something else for you, is about feasibility. And finally, we have to look at, say you have everything fine, but then what about the acceptability of it? If everything is good and if it is not accepted by your stakeholders, the whole drama stops there. So it's pretty important to understand whether the strategy you are going to bring in is acceptable by your stakeholders. Whether it's acceptable, if your stakeholders don't accept it, it's going to be a problem. Whether it's acceptable by your market, whether your market is going to accept this. You can have the idea, strategy and under the sun, but if the market rejects it, end of story. You're busted the whole gamut of it basically. So it has to be acceptable as well into the market. I would bring a quick example. An organization who has looked at all these aspects pretty well, like IKEA. IKEA has looked at all these aspects and brought a strategy for them which is very, very unique. It has been extremely suitable for them because they have brought in, what is IKEA? Just to catch in there, is a company, is a multinational company with modular furniture, giving unique items at value for money aspect, at a value for money position. So they've created this ideal strategy, the model which is pretty well suited for them. They got the advantage on the cost advantages on their downward stream. They've got extreme brand visibility in the market, and they have addressed the threats that they have, which is the shipping cost for furniture. They have addressed it spot on. I mean, what they have done is they have got into modular furniture. It's all flat packed. A competitor who ships the same quantity of furniture in 10 containers, they do it in 1 container. So they have addressed the suitability part pretty well. Going into feasibility, extremely feasible. Low cost on shipping, low cost on overheads, return on investment has been very good. Pretty feasible as a strategy itself. And acceptability in the market is perfect. They have branded it so well. They have made it for customers to move it across the world very easily. Their online setting is perfect. So this is how a strategy could be really brought into organization to be a perfect fit. So these 3 concepts, the concerns or the 3 aspects of reviewing or evaluating is extremely important to make your ideal strategic option.
All right, that was great. I don't think anyone should have any problem evaluating their strategic options anymore. But an organization also needs to understand what its strategic capability is. So what is a strategic capability of an organization?
An organization's strategic capability is it is an ability to task maybe the next level of competence persons or organizations it's having on. In simple sense, what are capabilities? Resources plus competencies equal capabilities, and unique resources plus core competencies equal strategic capabilities. The strategic capabilities plus strategic consistency equal sustainable competitive advantage. It's called those kind of things there.
You're absolutely right, Nilanjan. But like what you said, let's talk about a little bit about competitive advantage. Now, a lot of authors have spoken about competitive advantage. As you know, I mean, competitive advantage is something that where your competitors can't really copy you or benchmark you on what you do to your customers or to the market. So let me just explain what Louis does in 2013, how he defined competitive advantage. As this means by which a company will use its core competencies, leverage its strategic strengths while investing in sustaining a long-term strategy to outperform its rivalry and achieve a higher than average profit. So there are some key factors in competitive advantage, which is a value, and B, it is very rare, and also it cannot be benchmarked, and it is also it cannot be substituted. So I mean, IKEA was a great example. It's not easy for another furniture company to come and grab that market share, because in my opinion, IKEA has got all these things in line and they're well established into the world market, I would say.
All right, so as well, having an ideal situation is where a company having a strategic capability with a sustainable competitive advantage. But we need to understand the sources of competitive advantage, and there are routes to obtain a sustainable competitive advantage, which I will have Dhanuka explain to every one of y'all, because he actually knows the topic quite well.
Right.
Thank you, Fatima. You were talking about the sources of competitive advantage. When you're talking about the sources of competitive advantage, up until 90s, people are more talking about the positioning view. But now it's not the case. Now people are talking about also about the resource-based view. So you can understand there's two views into that. So the positioning view and resource-based view are regarding as sources of competitive advantage. So when you talk about the positioning view, it's more of a outside-in view. But when in contrast, the what you call the resources base is more of an inside-out view. So when you talk about the positioning view, it's all about achieving superior value to the adding value to your company, but you have to take the portion of the market. If you are doing something, if you are doing like achieving the cost advantage, or if you can add a differentiation advantage, then you are more like doing the outside in view and you are achieving the better competitive advantage. So, but when it comes to the resource based view, it's more like inside out view, as I said earlier. So you need to have resources and capabilities in order to thrive in the market. So Barney is one nice writer, author, who talks about this resources in a company. So he was talking about 4 areas that you need to be thriving in, and in order for your resources to be superior to your competitor, you need to have 4 areas basically. Your resources need to be valuable, and also it need to be it cannot be imitated by your competitors, and also it needs to be very rare. Also, your competitor should not be able to find a substitute for that. So then you are having a competitive advantage when you fulfill all these criteria. It's not only about the resource base, it's not only about the resources, it's all about competencies as well. If you, for example, competency is something like when Sony is having this miniaturizing capability, they are thriving in the market. The 3M is having this skills about in porting. So these sort of competencies will drive your business forward. And when your resources and competencies comes together, then you have a strategic capability. It's a capability means how effectively you use your resources. For example, if you can bring a product earlier than your competitor, then it is said that you are having strategic capability. So all together built up this competitive advantage in the market.
So we have come to the end of our session, and hopefully you now have a better understanding about what strategy is. So even though the contradictions are still present to date, these are all different schools of thought, and nevertheless each of these are right. So depending on what your organization is, what your organization is doing, what type of company you have, and the type of business that you have, when you eventually implement a strategy for your organization, you have to make sure that whatever strategy it is, it fits for the organization that you work for. That's all. Have a great day.